Isagenix with people. Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. So just kind of, let's start there. I know we have some questions and maybe and open it up for a little bit of Q&A if we have time, but we're figuring about 20 to 30 minutes here. And so I'll just toss it over to you, Dr. Paul, and just allow you to share what you're passionate about with your discovery, with Isagenix, what it's done for you, what you're watching it do for other people. And I'm going to pop it off this slide now. Just wanted to give people kind of a little small peek overview, a sliver of some of the contributions that you made in Isagenix, which we use these studies all the time in our presentations. They're part of the presentation. So let's give some shout out to Dr. Paul for all of his contributions and what he's done for us. And then
awesome.
Let's go ahead. I'll just toss it over to you and wherever you would like to start.
All right, Lenny, good seeing you. Hey, Dave, thank you. This is, even on a Saturday morning, I can get pretty fired up to be able to share with all of you. So, and thank you for all the work that you do to spread the word. And by the way, that slide is, for lack of a better word, is money. I really love the way that you captured all the major points there of my research. So I don't know how many new people are on here, but congratulations, because you're in a great place. This is the place to be when it comes to optimal health and performance. You've got the leaders that are here to support you on your journey. And I can't think of anyone that's more qualified than the people that you have on this call. So Dave, if you don't mind, how many new people do you have?
Oh, it's hard to say. I mean, we
Okay.
put the word out there. There's going to be, I'm sure there's some new people on here. And plus we're streaming it into the Facebook group, which has thousands of people.
Oh, nice. Good.
So, and then people will be added and this will be saved for posterity's sake. So really looking forward to creating that confidence in people, you know, and just that, again, the confidence and the assurance, you know, and I'm kind of scatterbrained this morning. Sorry about that, but
no, that's all right. I'll help you out.
And the studies, I mean, these are clinical peer reviewed. They're the toughest, right? And you've done a lot of them. So you've spent a lot of time in this area.
Yeah, let me just start there because I think it's very noteworthy for those of you that don't know me. So I'm a scientist. I'm sitting actually in my office right now. You can see some of the things behind me. I've been a college professor, scientist for, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but 30 years, and have been in the field of optimal health and performance physiology. I'm a physiology nutrition scientist applied. So I work with humans. I've done some animal model research, but my primary group of participants, subjects that I work with are human participants. And that's really important, right? And we have some great stuff that comes out of animal model research, but ultimately, as living, breathing, out in the wild humans, we want to know how it impacts us. Mice models are great, primates are great, but ultimately it comes down to us. So I'm an applied scientist, and I look at the whole organism. I look at all different facets and systems of the body, right? Our cardiovascular, our metabolic immune system, our neurocognitive central nervous system and brain. So I really do take a very holistic approach to the research that I do. And I've been doing this for a long time, and that's really important. You know, I think a lot of people assume that from within Isagenix, and I'm not, and I never have been. I've been an outside consultant and scientific advisory board, and that allows me to speak from a platform that is independent and untarnished and unbiased. I have to be fully forthcoming in disclosing that at the time that I do much of the research that I do with Isagenix in terms of this third party, we call it third party independent research. I also have other research, clinical trial research studies that I'm conducting, sometimes for other nutrition companies, sometimes for different philanthropic health organizations. So I'm not only, you know, an Isagenix scientist, but here's where the value comes in from that. And I think this is really important to help provide all of you this massive vote of confidence that the data that I present in my research, because it's unbiased and agnostic, and where I receive my funding and the type of research that I do, the implications and the impact that it makes holds that much more value and scientific rigor. So I know we kind of, you all maybe, perhaps, I hope not, but it's kind of easy to take it for granted because you think, oh, it's, Dr. Paulie's from Isagenix, the research he does, they fund it, blah, blah, blah. Nothing could be farther from the truth because you have to receive funding from someplace. Somebody has to step up to the plate and provide you funding to do research. You can't take that for granted. And so people say, Isagenix funded the research. You did the, you're on the scientific advisory board. That has nothing to do with it. If you're a professional scientist and you are truly independent and a third-party scientist, then you don't have a personal stake in any of the funding sources that you derive your funding from. You're doing the research at your own institution. I'm up in upstate New York and doing this research far away from Isagenix. They have absolutely no idea what I'm doing when I do these studies. They're not, they don't have a fed-in camera right now like Zoom watching over every step I take with my research. And that's really important. So I just want to start there because the value of the findings and the impact of the findings that I have discovered through the research that I do holds great value and allows it to be utilized at a very high level of impact in terms of helping people and impacting their health and performance, because I've done all these studies. So that's a really important point, and the reason why I've aligned myself. I have had research funding from other nutrition companies, other philanthropic organizations, and sometimes if they don't align with the principles of the scientific rigor and the ability to allow me to have first right of refusal or them not having the first right of refusal. What that means is when a grant funding agency provides funding, believe it or not, sometimes they will put in a clause in the contract that states that we would like to see what you have discovered as a scientist before you publish it. And so they can refuse whether or not the data that I generate can be published, or they can limit, significantly limit what gets published. Why is that of benefit? Well, for them, because they can control what ultimately gets put out into the public domain with the research that was done. And if it's not congruent or supportive of their belief system, well, then they have the right to deny it from being published. And that often happens. That's why companies do in-house research, right? So companies that do in-house research, it's very important to start at that level of determining whether or not there's efficacy of your particular product or service. And so you want to be able to first test it in-house. And that's really important. And I completely agree and support in-house, we call it testing. But ultimately you have to put it out and have it really rigorously tested independently of your oversight. And I can just say this, that Isagenix, when they came to me initially back in 2013, that was the first thing I was looking for, to see how they dealt with that, because here they are, a company, a private company. I would imagine that they wanted to make sure that all the results that were coming out from what I was finding in my independent research lab were favorable. And they, at no point, that's what now, 9 years later, they have never, and that's huge. I can say that that doesn't happen all the time. For a company to commit and dedicate this much of their revenue to third-party independent research and do it without any at all intention of wanting to control the outcome of the findings. I can't underscore how valuable that is to what you all have. The data that you have in terms of how it was generated, how it was dealt with, and how it was published, and how we conducted the research, completely independent of any influence at any level from the grant funding agency, is really remarkable. So yeah. I think it's really important to start there. I know I took a little bit of time.
No, that's great.
Really important.
I think that's probably one of the most important. And plus, if we go to the backside of that, not all companies and not all products are created equal.
Right.
And this is not a highly regulated industry, right? I've seen studies. One was called bogus supplements. None of the supplements had what they said were in it. And that was reported, mainstream. And so that's really important to understand, that people don't have to hold themselves to a high level of accountability and integrity. And so, and I learned this from Lenny early on, you got to have beliefs in, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, in certain areas, the company, the products, the compensation plan, and the industry. And you've added so much. I mean, I don't know, maybe you're making some kind of history here where we could look back on this industry and really give it that credibility that you've established, that otherwise might not be so well established among some people's, minds and their perception. So I think that's huge, because again, and maybe you can speak to this a little bit, and I think it's why we have, some of the key words that you say, I key in on some of these points, like an outlier. Like if I can just pull up this screen again real quick, these numbers, like on the athletes, you said you were expecting, a marginal increase, because you had already done the 6-month study that had showed quadrupled the weight loss, quadrupled the lean mass, doubled the metabolism, and tripled the toxin release. So you knew you were going to see something, but you took top performing athletes that were already supplementing, and like 14 times more lower body explosive power. Malcolm talks about that all the time, because in his 70s, he's skiing better than he ever has since getting on Isagenix, 5 times more upper body explosive. So not only are we making sure that our products are clean and the ingredients are the high quality, it's the synergistic blend within each product. And then you have each product that's supporting the other products. So it's this amazing system that runs really deep to produce these kind of results. Do you want to speak to that a little bit, as to, you're seeing results and a response from the human body that you'd never seen before?
I really haven't. As you said, I've been in this a long time, and to be able to think about this just for a minute. So I'm glad you brought up the athlete study, because it's not talked about too much, but when you're taking people that are already at, I call it the threshold limit, right? So they're at the ceiling of performance. They're at the ceiling of health. There's not a lot of room for improvement. And so the more we journey on our way to optimal health and physical performance, we don't have a lot of extra room on the top. And so that study was really eye-opening for me. I'm an athlete myself. I still compete at a high level. And to witness that firsthand, I mean, these were people coming in off the street that were already at the pinnacle of their training. And many of them had been training for 5-6 days a week. And then to introduce the nutrition that we provided them, of course, Isagenix AMP nutrition, and to see, and for them to see in a relatively short period of time. They were very reluctant coming in, I have to admit. We pay our participants, well, Isagenix does, which is really notable, because not a lot of funding agencies do that. And you do it just to help maintain compliance, and you do it across the board. So you do it for all the participants. You're not just doing it for one group. You're paying them just for being willing to volunteer. So that's important in and of itself, but there's no obligation on their end. They're still humans. They have other responsibilities, and the fact that we were able to witness this, and when they came in thinking, oh gosh, I have to reduce my exercise down to 4 times a week from my normal 5 or 6 times. Oh, I have to change my clean, this is what they said, I have to change my clean eating to, taking in some of these supplements that you're providing me. And it was those things that they were saying at the beginning. And when they came in for their midpoint testing and they saw their results, as you just showed and demonstrated, this significant improvement. And over the first couple of weeks, as they were going through this, they were coming in, because we had them coming in either between 6 and 8 in the morning, or 6:30 and 8:30 at night. So that publication is going to be out soon. So I can't share it with you right now, but the morning versus the evening exercise routine is going to be really fascinating. And I can't wait to be able to share this with all of you coming up soon. We're submitting it this week, actually. But what I was hearing from them as they were coming in, whether it was first thing in the morning or at the end of a hard day, was, I feel amazing. I never realized I had this much energy. And I was thinking to myself, what are you talking about? You're, highly trained. And you're saying you have this next level of energy after just 2 or 3 weeks, and all of them were saying it. And they didn't know what was going on. They just knew that they felt better. They knew that they had more energy. And so when we brought them in for the midpoint testing, and they were actually able to objectively, not subjectively, because what they were reporting, themselves was all just subjective. Hey, I'm feeling better. I'm thinking better. This is really odd. I thought that I was at, my pinnacle of fitness and clean eating and how I should be training. And you knocked me down a couple of days in my normal training. You introduced some of this other nutrition that I'm supposed to be eating, and man, I'm feeling better. And then when we brought them in at the midpoint, and then obviously at the end of the testing, and they were just blown away at what they were able to do compared to what they did at the beginning of the study. It was, it's a groundbreaking, that was groundbreaking in many respects, not just scientifically, but also at a very human, personal level. So yeah, it's really cool data. I have some slides I wanted to share, but we don't need to go into it. What we're talking about, I think, is captures the essence of what we're talking about, and ultimately it comes down to the quality of the nourishment. I know, we have a lot of you out there. I myself am a big believer in local produce, farmers market, nutrition, organic eating, whole food eating. I think that's really important, but it's really challenging. And there's no guarantee that even those sources that I just described, farmers market, local, organic, still are completely devoid and absent of potentially harmful substances, or not at the quality of nutrition that our bodies need to thrive. And I think that's really important. Whereas, when I reach into my fridge behind me and grab out my Isoline Pro or my Ionix, I know I'm getting top nutrition. And so, yeah, it made me a believer for sure. And it's a staple of my family nutrition moving forward now. But that is the difference. When you combine other, lifestyle components, in this case, physical exercise and activity in the right amount and type, with the right neurocognitive and brain health lifestyle components, and then ultimately the nutrition, it just brings us to a whole different level of function. So yeah, the quality of what's provided, and that's a really important point. There are a lot of choices to choose from when it comes to nutrition and supplementation and engineered nutrition the right way. But ultimately, it's the quality of those ingredients, where they've been sourced from, how they're third-party tested for various components, right? We have all different types of heavy metals and toxins and pesticides. I mean, they've done those reports. You were talking about some of the ones that they've done with supplements that's not very well regulated, saying that what they have in it isn't even in it, or saying what they have in it is at a limit, well beyond what's acceptable. And so both extremes. And when you can really rest your head on your pillow at night, knowing that what you consumed is exactly what is in it, that's a really good feeling. And I can say that all of the quality assurance, quality control testing that is done with Isagenix passes at the highest level. It's one of the reasons why I align myself with them and conduct the research that I do, because they exceed all the other companies in terms of consistent quality assurance, quality control, and sourcing of their ingredients. So yeah, they truly remain at the top of the list. I have a study going on right now, fully disclosing. It's in the corner of my office from another nutrition company, and they're of high quality, but I can say without disclosing who it is, Isagenix is at the top in terms of their quality control and quality assurance. So you should, I think, really feel good about what you're doing. And
yeah, I think that what you said at New Year's kickoff, they're leading the way in science and nutrition, and that speaks volumes. It speaks volumes too that you aligned, you're using the products, and that you've actually aligned. And then also you said some of the participants in the studies, it changed. You had that gentleman that had released, I can't remember how much weight, but quite a bit, that was on the stage, and he's going to continue to use the products. But this what you're seeing with the consumers of the products as participants and how it's changing their lives. And what I love about Isagenix, it's not just they may come in for that one goal, that one, thing that they want to accomplish, lose some weight, maybe, get rid of some aches and discomforts or whatever. But then they find this whole new, it's almost like being reborn. Like it's when you put Isagenix in, we say it wakes you up. And you've noticed that with your participants as well. And some of them have continued to go on and use the products. I think that speaks volumes that you are using them and then your participants as well.
Without question, yeah. Many of them, if not, yeah, I don't know the exact number, but there's a lot. And many of them that have been doing it from the beginning. That, the first study that I conducted was way back in 2014. And I see them all. And they're part of the family here. They're continuing to consume and benefit from it. So yeah, it's a lifestyle. It's not something that you're doing transiently, intermittently, that if you want to derive the optimal benefit from it, it's something that you need to commit to as a lifestyle, because that's what it is. So Dave, yeah,
did you want to show some slides
the questions. What's that?
Did you want to show some slides on something, did you say?
Well, you know what? I get carried away when I get onto slides. I mean, I can maybe just share with you a little bit, but I did have a couple of things that I wanted to focus on today, not my email. So this was way more than I wanted, but there were a couple of things that I thought would be of great importance for all of you to take away from some of the messaging that I wanted to have today. And it was, we all talk about optimal health and performance, and what does that mean? Well, what it means to me at a very basic cellular level, and I know you talk about the telomeres and telomerase and I mean the Isagenesis. I mean, it's a wonderful product. That's another one that's a staple in our daily routine for sure. And it's related to what I'm showing you on the screen here, is that it really comes down to metabolic flexibility and nutrient partitioning, and the way to accomplish both of those things. And what I'm talking about when I talk about metabolic flexibility is our body's ability to adapt and be flexible and nimble to the environment that we're living in terms of our nourishment. Right now, we're not. Right now, with 100% certainty, I can state this and confidence that the majority of the population, at least here in North America and other developed countries, is very metabolically inflexible. And what that means is that after we consume food, our body is not very responsive. It's not very sensitive to how to digest, absorb, transport, metabolize, and ultimately store and secrete and excrete those nutrients and waste products from the food. We're just not well adapted. So we're very, what we call metabolically inflexible. And I don't know if you guys have all talked about this before, but it's the number one factor related to our health. How sensitive, how responsive we are to the nutrients that we have coming into our body. And it is also pertains to other environmental stressors that we encounter, right? So we're encountered by toxins all the time. In the air we breathe, right now I'm in my office, I'm breathing in some toxins from the vents, and what we're consuming for sure, what we're putting on our body, what we're drinking. I mean, we're having exposure to toxins at a very high level all the time. And so our body's ability to adapt and to respond to those toxins coming in, and you address some of the research that I've done in this area with Isagenix and how responsive our bodies do become when we start to consume the right nutrients. But this metabolic flexibility is really where everything starts. And then once we have metabolic flexibility, meaning we respond the appropriate way to the nutrients coming into our body, we can then partition them into the tissues and into the vital organs and into the cells that need it. Because right now we're not doing a very good job. I'll just give you one example of this. Type 2 diabetes, right? So type 2 diabetes is a dysfunction of our body's ability to regulate and monitor our blood sugar. And it's continues to be one of the fastest growing global epidemics in the world, and particularly in the United States. We have a massive onslaught of new type 2 diabetics every day, and it's a massive, massive healthcare drain. So I'm doing a study right now with type 2 diabetics, and they have a metabolic inflexible state. So when they take in foods, instead of their body metabolizing and utilizing those fuel sources, they are not doing very well at it at all. So they're actually starving in a sea of excess type 2 diabetics. And what I mean by that is their cells of their body are undernourished, despite the fact that they have an abundance, a plethora of available energy reserves in their body, but their body's just not using it. They're not metabolically flexible. And so their blood is swimming, literally swimming, in glucose, despite the fact that the cells of their body are living in an excess of fat, what we call adipose, free fatty acids. And the body's just not utilizing it. And so being able to transition into a healthier state is critical. So what I do, so you'll find out why I'm introducing this. What I do is I apply a model of intermittent nutritional fasting, nutrient dense. It's very nutrient dense intermittent fasting, and protein pacing. And I utilize the Isagenix system to optimize. You can do it with other whole foods. You can do it with other nutritional products and supplements. In my research, I found that the optimal way to transition people into metabolic flexibility and nutrient partitioning, and all the downstream benefits that come from that, autophagy, mitophagy, apoptosis. These are all the buzzwords around the things that our body goes through on a regular basis to enhance our health. I found that the best way to utilize all of those and activate all of those systems is through the use of the Isagenix system. So using the nutrient dense intermittent fasting and the protein pacing. So I have a whole bunch of slides, but essentially this one is where we're all living. We're all living in a world, not all of you, because you're all following the nutrient dense intermittent fasting protein pacing using Isagenix, but we live in a sugar burning state, right? We burn sugar, even though we have 70 to 100,000, in fact, in many cases, more than 100,000 calories on our body as body fat. That's what we have. So we have enough energy on our body, most typical people that we encounter, to survive a minimum of 35 days. We don't need food for 35, 50 days because we have plenty of it on our body. The irony, the paradox, is that we're not able to burn it because we're metabolically inflexible. And so when we follow the intermittent nutritional fasting and the protein pacing that I've incorporated in the research that I've done with Isagenix, and this new study that I just completed is really eye-opening. I can just show you some quick results there because it's currently under review in a leading nutrition science journal. I have to be careful divulging that before it's published. We transition into a heightened state of metabolic flexibility. Our body just loves that environment of intermittent nutritional fasting for at least 24 hours, because that's the sweet spot. So time restricted eating, people who do the 16-8, and I don't know how much you all talk about this, that's okay. Not the best, not the ideal. The 5-2, where you go 5 days of eating whatever you want, and then the 2 days you kind of do more of a fasting, and you kind of space those out over the course of the week. Some people do what's called an alternate day fasting. So I have all these slides. I show you all the different variations. Here's the alternate day. One day you're eating normally, the next day you're kind of reducing your intake. You eat normally, you reduce your intake. So you alternate day, the days that you fast. That's okay, not great. Here's the time restricted eating model, the 16-8. So some people do that. They show some modest benefit. This is the 5-2. So you just choose 2 days of the week that you want to ideally reduce your caloric intake. But ultimately, the two best that reign supreme, that really are not even close to the others because of the health benefit that you derive from them, are the 36 hours. That's the 1 day. But if you're doing it from, let's say, for example, 8 o'clock on a Monday night, and you don't eat again until Wednesday morning. It's actually 36 hours. People think of it as a 1 day, but it's actually a 36-hour. So that's the data that I derived from the first Isagenix study that was just off the charts in terms of toxin release, in terms of antioxidant health benefits, so the body's defense system, increasing significantly, oxidative stress plummeting, and all of those massive favorable body composition changes that you show on that one slide. And then the most recent study is the one that I just finished looking at, the 36-hour compared to a 60-hour. That would be a 2-day. And they have to be back to back. And so those are head and shoulders above any of the other different forms of intermittent fasting that we can do. It's really not even close in terms of activating things like autophagy, activating our antioxidant defense system, mitochondrial defense, we call it mitophagy, so the cleaning out of mitochondria and activating the cell's ability to generate ATP at a higher level. So all of those things are maximized when you do a 36 or a 60-hour intermittent nutritional fast. And I call it nutritional fasting because it's not that you're abstaining from eating anything at all. You are actually strategically nourishing the body with optimal nutrition. Of course, I'm referring to Cleanse for Life. I'm talking about Ionics. You do those things on a daily basis during these 36 and 60-hour. It takes the fasting routine to a whole different level. I mean, fasting with just water or not paying attention to the quality of the nutrition that you're eating during that fast of 100, 200, 300 calories makes all the difference in the world. I mean, it makes all the difference in the world. And so that's what I'm most excited about. So if I could leave you with something that I'm most excited about in terms of the data and the research findings that I've generated, and what the world and the other scientists around the world are most excited about based on the research that I've conducted, is the value that the intermittent nutritional fasting and protein pacing regimen holds for enhancing people's health at the highest level, of which we use Isagenix to do that. I can just tell you, I hope you guys know and appreciate what you're sitting on, because the rest of the scientific world is embracing this at a very high level. And it's something that you should definitely manifest and
that's a goosebump moment, Dr. Paul. I've got the chills. That's huge. That's, again, speaks volumes, especially when other researchers are citing your study. Wow. I know we have a lot of note takers here and people that are going to be like, Dave, don't interrupt them. Let them keep going. But, we are on a time constraint. But
you are.
Just
36 hours, Dave. 36 hours works so well for me. It's spooky.
Yeah.
When he said start at 8, I'm gonna start tonight at 6 p.m. and I'll break my fast at 6 a.m. Monday. Okay, that's 36 hours.
Yep.
That works so well. It's unreal, guys.
Dr. Paul, we're so grateful for your contributions. We want to have you back for sure, especially when some of these studies on the collagen get released and we're seeing some amazing stuff internally from the collagen as well. And not sure if your studies are going to indicate any of that, but like my wife with her knee, she's had knee pain for over 10 years. That reduced from an 8 to a 2 in 3 weeks on the collagen after surgeries, acupuncture, stretching, trying everything. So we're really amazed at what, we added the collagen to our Forever Pack, the Isagenesis, and get them on the protein pacing with the shakes.
Yeah.
But just any last thing you want to share before we end here and let you get on with your Saturday. But again, we just want to give a huge shout out. Oh, I know there was one question. Maybe if I could just interject this real quick.
Yeah.
Somebody asked about professional athletes, especially in the Paralympics. Like, is there any testing issues? I know there haven't been with the Olympic athletes. Is there anything that, has anything changed on that? Or are we still clean that people could use those products and be assured that when they get tested, they're not going to be flagged for anything? Do you
100%.
know on that?
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, the informed sport certification is still in effect, and there's nothing in any of the products that would prohibit, unless a person is consuming, this Paralympic athlete or any other athlete for that matter is over consuming caffeine. So they're chugging a bunch of beers and a couple of E-shots. Believe it or not, caffeine is the only one that's on the banned substance list at a particular level of blood level of caffeine. So you just have to be careful with caffeine.
Just using it wouldn't fail that. It would have to be an extreme amount of using.
Oh, it's an extreme amount. Yeah, no, if you were having, 2-3 beers a day and an E-shot, you're fine. I'm talking about excessive intake of, drinking 10 to 12 of them. So there's absolutely no concern whatsoever with any of the products of Isagenix making it on amped nitro, for example, right? And creatine, the safest of all nutritional supplements on the market, is highly, highly effective and extremely, extremely safe. So those things should be dietary staples for all athletes. NOx, amped nitro, power, absolutely. No, there's none. So what I would leave you with is you have an enormous gold mine of peer-reviewed, third-party, independent validation of Isagenix. It's hard for me to put this in the words because it makes me come across as being an Isagenix insider, and I'm not. But I don't think you all perhaps truly appreciate, and I think you do. Maybe I'm just misspeaking, but you have research that has been critically analyzed by experts out in the world, and have given it a massive, stamp of approval. Use that. I mean, why wouldn't you want to? I'm taking advantage of it in my own personal life, and I want everyone to. I mean, it's silly not to. It's almost like our obligation that we should carry with us. I mean, it's kind of our cross that we need to carry to say, hey, listen, we have something that no one else does. And you truly do. I mean, I know all these other nutrition companies. I work with some of them. They don't have the quality of reassurance and efficacy that you all have. And so, it's a real gem. And I think you should use it. But here's what I wanted to say to that. What you have already is like no one else has in terms of the third-party independent validation of the efficacy of the results that you can obtain. What you have coming from the research that we've done over the last couple of years is going to blow that out of the water. You've got 3 to 5 years, the next 3 to 5 years to really take charge with the data that I'll be publishing over this next year. We're expecting, and I don't want to misspeak, but we're expecting a minimum of 5 to as many as 7 or 8 studies coming out in really high quality scientific journals. So, man, you guys are going to be rocking it. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Well put, well said. And I think the confidence that we should be at a 10 with the products in the company right now, total 10. Because of your efforts, what you bring. So again,
well, I'm playing just a one role, but you all are on the trenches, out in the out in the field doing it. So I'm here to support you, Dave. I'm so grateful to you, Lenny, and all the others that are on the call. You guys are the ones, and women are the ones that are leading the charge. And if I can play my role and help supporting all of you, Jojo, I mean, I'm here to help support. You guys are the ones that are getting it done. So thanks for having me.
Thank you. Give a shout out, you guys. Thanks, Dr. Paul. Enjoy your Saturday, and thanks for taking the time out of your Saturday to share with us today. It's a really big deal for us.
Always. Thank you all.
Okay, I'll see you. Wow, you guys. Okay, let me stop the recording. Whoever hit the recording, you want